The Joel Fernandez Show is a talk show channeled spontaneously from source to edify and help raise the vibrations of truthers, starseeds, Christic alchemists, and others who have seen through this illusionary matrix into messianic consciousness by discussing hidden knowledge, higher dimensions, and manifesting so that we can shine our light for everyone to see and co create the earth that we know we actually deserve to live in. Don't! I gotta go! I'm working on the show! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Joel Fernandez Show. I'm Joel Fernandez, and today I'm going to take you on an expose of the calendar that Source downloaded to me back in 2012 when I had this really deep awakening, and I realized that the institution, and particularly the Gregorian calendar and how we're taught to keep time, actually has nothing to do with Source's time. And this refers to a bit of the book of Enoch, but ultimately this was downloaded to me as a revelation in that, there's a big clock in the sky, and Source made that clock to convey not only the times and the seasons, but just the nature of the story, of the blueprint of all that is. This is the eternal plan. This is the one script that manifests all of creation. And it's a fractal reality. It's holographic. There are so many different levels to this, but it's all manifest in the simple sine wave of time. And that, of course, corresponds to the breaking forth over the horizon, the Passover, the vernal equinox. The sun enters the tropical sign of Aries. But the peculiarity that Source downloaded to me was that Aries is no longer the constellation of Aries. That's now the constellation of Pisces. So how do we make sense of this? How do we put this together in this new era? Because it's a new era. We can't be using stuff from the old era in the new era and say that, oh, this is slightly adjusted. It has to be a completely new era. New symbols, new signs, new months, names, and all that kind of stuff for a new way of doing things. We have literally entered Earth 2.0, and things are only accelerating from there. So, you know what? With that out of the way, let's just jump right into it, shall we? I'll see you guys in Studio B. All right, so here we are in Studio B, where we have set up our trusty calendar. And yes, this calendar came to me in 2012 when Source downloaded to me that, the Gregorian calendar and all these institutionalized, left brain codified ways of keeping time. Like, time is codified, time is precise, but you know what? The Gregorian calendar is completely arbitrary, and some of these other calendars, even the lunar calendars of rabbinical Judaism, aren't quite exact the way Source is exact. And that all dawned on me when I really started understanding precessional slippage, the pulse of the sine wave. And on top of that, when I read the book of Enoch, how simple it all is supposed to be. Well, that's what Source told me. 12 months, 4 quarters, very, very simple. And this is the nature of our time. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so this calendar, as you can see, is the 9th year from my initial revelation. And as we can see, the sun goes around here once every year. And that keeps the time for the whole year. And of course, this corresponds with the tropical zodiac. So starting with Aries, we have the tropical signs. But notice here, we also have Hebrew letters, and those correspond to the 12 single letters. And we have the Hebrew month names. Now, these month names obviously are the guidelines for the rabbinical calendar. They're not the precise rabbinical calendar, because rabbinical calendar keeps track by the moon, and we're going to get to that in a bit here. But as the sun goes around, this whole, literally, these are the stars in the sky, and the sun goes around these stars once every year. And that is literally how we have 360 days in the year. That is the original timepiece kept in the book of Enoch. 364 days divided by 4 into 4 quarters for each season. You can see this one's blue, this one's red, this one's white, and this one's black. I did have some animals that were associated with this kind of setup that was just taken off of the Chinese calendar, and ultimately I'm just doing what source is guiding me into. So this is a syncretic calendar, and of course the 4 seasons do correspond to the 4 creatures, but ultimately the 4 creatures are the same ones used in the Gospels and the cherubim, the 4 living creatures, which have a head of a lion, a head of an eagle, a head of an ox, and the head of a man. Those represent the 4 fixed signs, which, as we can see, there's the bull, the lion, the scorpion, which used to be an eagle, and the man, which is Aquarius. And as you can see, these 12 are set up exactly in 3 per quarter. And, this is the rising pulse, this is the waning pulse, this is the waning pulse under the horizon, and this is the pulse as it comes back, moving upward again to that horizon, which it crosses every year on the vernal equinox. And that corresponds with tropical Aries. But because of precessional slippage, this constellation here that the sun is in at the same time, following this green line, is actually the sign of Pisces. And that causes a little bit of problems because Aries has moved up to here. And Aries, the constellations, actually corresponds with the tropical pulse section of Taurus. Now, how do we reconcile that? Because at the beginning of this age, Aries was back down here, and once the sun crossed over this horizon, it would be in the sign of Aries, and we would have this Aries Nisan month for Passover because the sun passes over the horizon. However, what happened here is that Pisces is now, or at least this constellation that used to be called Pisces, is the constellation in which the sun is at the vernal equinox. And for this 12th section of the year called, under tropical zodiac, Aries. So how do we reconcile this? Well, Source downloaded to me that this constellation has to match this energy that is Aries, the breaking forth, the budding, the aprire, or the opening of the year. So Source downloaded to me new names of each month to correspond with the constellation and what it looks like, or what Source showed me that it can look like in relationship to its tropical sign now. Because you have the Vedic astrology, which actually keeps the signs, and now Aries is up here, but Aries will always be at the breakthrough, that birthing forth, the opening of the whole year. So how do we reconcile that with this? Well, these two, which used to represent 2 fish, now they represent flowers. And those flowers are fire flowers, or actually hyssop, but the word that Source gave me is jalsa, and this actually corresponds with Aquarius. And Aquarius now is in the tropical sign of Pisces, but actually, if you look at this red line, it's already crossed. If what you can see here, the man bearing a pitcher of water, and he's pouring forth his waters, that's already crossed into this constellation. So we are actually in that era. People call it the era of Aquarius or the age of Aquarius, but it's not Aquarius because Aquarius will always be this 11th, 12th of the section. The 12th being Pisces, and then the first stage, that opening of the year, the blossoming, is Aries. But we can't call it either Aries or Pisces because that causes confusion. So Jalsa refers to the flowers of hyssop, which represent these fiery flowers that are part of the recipe of Kumba's anointing oil. I won't get into that right now, but these flowers now represent that fiery opening. We go to the next one, and it's Tamzar, and this is the bull. This is the bull now, and this bull corresponds to this bull, but Tamzar is the bull of might, which corresponds to 2 twins, and we're going to get to those 2 twins in a bit here. Next month, Alshir, and that's an eagle or a hawk. And this hawk, as you can see, the Pleiades are right here, and that corresponds to the opening of this sign, which is Gemini in the tropical calendar. This sign is actually the holiday on May the 20th. the Jyotichiksi, the 7 stars or the 7 sisters. And every single one of these holidays, every single one of these months actually opens with a holiday. Some of the holidays are a couple days in, depending on when the sun falls on that particular alignment with certain stars. But each of these are major holidays within each of the 12 months of the year. And these constellar months actually have different number of days. As you can see, this one starts on, in the Gregorian calendar, March the 20th. This one starts on April the 22nd. This one's May the 20th. June 21st, which is the summer solstice. Let's check this out. And that corresponds with this alignment here when the sun actually crosses over. Here you have Orion, which in the download I got symbolizes a king named Rasaya, and he has 2 twin sons. And those 2 twin sons correspond to these 2 animals, the bull and the hawk. But those 2 twins actually rule here in this sign. And of course, here we incorporate the energy of tropical Cancer with the constellar sign. And now we're crossing over past the summer solstice into this month, Ishan, which is actually the word for twins in this downloaded language that I received. That's a whole other subject. And I'm not saying that we all got to start speaking that language, but that is a code language in which all of this is codified. And we talk a lot about the stars and the nature of the firmament and a whole bunch of other stuff in the Apocalypse of Juval Iailu, or the Apocalypse that I received back in 2012. And then from there, of course, we have all these dates that open each of the months. And next one, we have Karkan, which corresponds to the sign or the constellation of the crab. Karkan refers to that. It means crab, but that's Leo in the tropical sign. So this Leo is the fiery crab, and that's what Karkan symbolizes. Next, we have Simha, which means lion, and of course we have the constellation of the lion, but now this is in the tropical sign of Virgo. So what do we do when we have a lion in the sign of Virgo? Well, this lion is the king of the pride. He is not out hunting. He's the one that the hunters bring the food to, and he sits and he waits. And this festival for this month is on August the 22nd. It corresponds to one of the very few, I think there's only 4 stars that the sun actually crosses over in the zodiac. This one is called Regulus, and that is the heart of the lion. And here it's Agnimas, which literally means the mass of fire. And yeah, so big bonfires that day, commemorating those fading temperatures with the heat of fire. Each of these festivals are very important, actually. Then we come to the longest month of the year, Kanya, which means the virgin or the maiden, and it corresponds to the constellar month of the maiden or the virgin, but as you can see, Libra. So we've already passed the judgment scales, and this is what this represents. It actually corresponds to the whole harvest season. We have a whole week for this festival. This is the longest festival of the year, guys. It's no coincidence that it corresponds specifically with my birthday, September 16th, and also the harvest moon falls in this month. But before we get to the moons, we're just going to finish each month here. Arco, which corresponds to the constellation of the scales. But here you can see it's kind of like a tree, and that's what Arco means in that language. And it corresponds to the scorpion. As you can see, this is a bit lower, and it actually kind of starts here. See, this month starts on September 16th, and 50 some days later, on November 6th, starts the next month, which is also the shortest month of the year. So we have the longest month here and the shortest month here, and that corresponds with when the sun enters this constellation and then when the sun crosses through this constellation. Last month before the winter solstice is Hakrab, which means scorpion. Here we have the constellation of the scorpion. As you can see, it's kind of claws there. And that would have corresponded with Scorpio back in the day, but now it corresponds to Sagittarius. So as you can see, these symbols have kind of moved down and adapted to their new position in relationship with the tropical zodiac, which never changes because Aries is always on that vernal equinox. as we come up to Ashvar. So there are 7 days before the winter solstice. And the winter solstice is 3 days starting on December 20th. But these 7 days before it are kind of like days out of time. And it's like a really introspective time of the year in general, you know? But yes, very great preparation. And before we move into this month, then we come into the next month, moving up Nehushta, which literally is the medicine serpent, or the serpent of medicine. And this refers to a whole other story. There are a few images in here that were downloaded to me as oracles, and I don't really have time to share much of that right now, but each one of these correspond with one of these sections. Then, of course, we have the constellation of Aquarius, still now under the horizon, but slowly this is moving through the horizon. So as these constellations move, this line will actually move, but it takes 70 some years for that to move 1 degree. So we'll get to that when we do, but right now this is the year, the 9th year since this has been incorporated on the winter solstice 2012 in the Gregorian calendar. And we have this month right before we come to the feast of the Vernal Equinox, which is Sadanag, which refers to an ancient Persian cookie, actually, which was the royal grain made from hemp seed. And Sadanag was basically a sign of this fertility. Now, on this day, we commemorate the blossoming of the year by planting flowers and, of course, the Hiros Gamos. I made videos on all these festivals leading up from the winter solstice all the way to here. But since then, I've had a deeper revelation of how this whole calendar unfolds. And, you know, it's not about each of these days, because we can each celebrate all of these days on our own. But what is really important is that we know that time is being kept by source and not by our own egos. So this is the commemoration of the new year. Then over here, Astarta, we have a feast of the shoots and the buds of the earth. We eat only salad this day. And of course, normally I would be raw vegan, but the way groceries are and the way things go up here in Calgary, you know, it's a bit of a struggle sometimes. So you do your best. But on this day, strictly, I eat only vegetables and raw food. On this day is the day when the sun aligns closest to the Pleiades. It doesn't actually cross right over it, but it's the closest on this day, which is May 20th. And the 7 sisters represent the 7-phase initiation, where we oracle, we prophesy, and we really tap into the divine message for not only the whole year, but for our lives as well. Summer solstice, big bonfires, you know, that kind of thing. Zakadar, you take from your produce. So there's 3 times in the book of Enoch and the subsequent Hebrew calendar, the authentic Hebrew calendar, not the rabbinical Hebrew calendar. But each one of these, you have the Passover, then you have the harvest, wheat harvest, first fruits, all of that stuff around here. And that's when we put aside our produce to help others. And then, of course, down here you have the harvest festivals, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim, all that kind of stuff down here. Like I said, Agnimas, which is the 10th day on the month of Sima, is also a commemoration of fire. This is 7 days of harvest parades through the streets. Now, I can't really do that where I live, but we still parade the harvest through the kitchen. And for 7 days, it's basically a one big party. So that lasts for 30 days. And then on this day, the 31st, you have the sun actually meeting up with Spica, and we have Spica Fest, which is basically a recap of the whole harvest season, and then the closing of that month before we come to Sintag, which is where we build oracle tents and we prophesy in them. Last year, November the 6th, 2 days after the United States federal election, I wasn't sure what was going on. I built my prophecy tent, and Source came to me and said, "Do not worry." I actually featured that in one of the earlier Joel Fernandez shows, where I actually said, you know, judgment is coming, justice is coming. And every time I wonder, every time I'm not sure, Source always brings me back and says, remember my word, I do not stray from my promises. And then we come to Akrabus, which is, you know, referring to Akrab, which is the scorpion. And this is when we literally meditate and really get deep in and prepare for these 7 days. These 7 days, it starts here, and the 7th day is the first day of this 3-day period, which is the winter solstice. Now, these 3 days, it's like the birth of the sun. This is when the sun is not moving. This is like the birth of the sun that's, Rome celebrates with Christmas. Now, Christmas is a pagan Roman holiday, and it has nothing to do with actual scripture. And that is what I'm exposing with my show. I'm exposing that the people that claim to be the harbingers or the bearers of the scriptural message are actually the people doing the exact opposite. And that is exactly what Mystery Babylon is all about. So this one, it's like a really deep meditation time as well. You really get in tune with yourself before this next month, which is Nativar, opening this month of Nehushta, which is where we have already realized, what is our purpose, what is our passion, what is our real talent, and we implement it on this day for the next whole year. This is the day of the anointing, Chrism Day, and this is also another rite. But you know what? These aren't necessary as much as it is to know that the time that we're following is not of this world. It's not the Gregorian calendar. It is of the stellar mobile and the great clock in the sky. And this clock doesn't change from year to year. There are no leap years. There are no leap days. There's nothing. Every time the sun crosses over the vernal equinox, that is the beginning of a new year. And of course, we have that as a marker, but we can begin this year on any of these 4 foundations, either this one, that one, the harvest season, or the winter solstice. Those are 4 cornerstones of the year. Now, each of these is built on a foundation, and each of these months is actually represented by one of the gemstones. And if you look at my necklace, I'm actually wearing each of these gemstones. And if we look, we start off with this labradorite right there. And then we have 7 wooden beads representing the month before we get to lapis lazuli. And then the next month is larimar. And then the next month is charoite. And then a red jasper right there. Check that out. Check that out. And then a malachite. And then unakite. And then a big, huge amber, because amber is pretty cool. And then we have tiger's eye. Look at that one. Okay, and then after tiger's eye, seraphinite, representing Kanya, after we've crossed the autumnal equinox. And we have sardonyx, or black onyx. And then we have a piece of tourmaline. Before halfway through, we have some obsidian. And this one's represented by white obsidian, but obsidian nonetheless. And then we have 3 rudrakshas. And then we have 7 beads representing the 7 days. We have pyrite representing Surya, or the sun. We have moonstone representing Lansha, or the moon. Then we have a garnet representing Arya, or Mars. And then apatite representing Arkan, or Mercury. Mukaite representing Jupiter, or Niraj. Emerald representing Hlishtar, or Venus. And then Jet representing Shanul, or Saturn. This is the necklace of the calendar right here. And so that's the nature of this whole calendar, but it doesn't stop there. Although the sun keeps time of the perfect seasons and the perfect year, we also have the lunar calendar, guys. We mustn't forget the lunar calendar. So the full moon that corresponds with the winter solstice is called the ice moon. The names are really irrelevant, but as we know, the moon keeps her own time, and each of these is actually a totally different month. And to celebrate these, either the full moons, the new moons, whatever that is, that's a personal introspective calendar. But the real extrospective calendar, which is the outside, which is the whole year, that corresponds to the solar calendar. But each of these months, of course, the months stray and then the moon comes in 10 days too early every year. But that goes on through the whole year. You have each of the moons come in every month. So in this year, we have the ice moon, then we have the wolf moon, then we have the sap moon, then we have the seed moon, which corresponds to sowing the seeds. Then we have the thunder moon, we have the milk moon, and the mead moon. Now, this is very interesting because as a vegan, milk and mead are basically out of bounds for me, and I don't even want to go there. But what this represents is the milk of the earth and the mead of the earth. Mead is basically honey that's been turned into beer, fermented beer. The first beer was made in Babylon, and it was made out of honey. And that refers to that. Don't think that this calendar is endorsing Babylon, because this whole thing is actually supplanting the whole Gregorian system, and we're actually transcending that now. Elk moon, corn moon, and here we have, of course, the harvest moon. We have the hunter moon and the oak moon. And of course, those are always there. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes there's 13 moons for the year, and we have to accommodate that because just of lunar slippage. But that's the way these two calendars work together. And on top of that, I fit in here the day and the time in every lunar cycle when my moon, at least, is in the sun sign of my birth, and that corresponds to raising the chrism, when the seed actually is crucified in the optic thalamus. And you keep those times of the year as well. We have, of course, the 7 days, which correspond to the 7 heavens, and all of these are marked for the Sundays, which is the gold, and then the white for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If you watch my videos, you'll also know that I code my videos according to those colors when I release them. But on top of those 7-day cycles, we have on top of that, each of these quarters are divided into one of 7. So as you can see, it goes backwards along the same pattern. 7, 7, 7, 7. But each of these 7, if you look, correspond to another set in here of 13 days. Now, these 13 days are very important because that symbolizes another system of 13, and each of these represent one of the physical elements of manifest creation. All of creation follows a series of 7. So, for example, the sun controls, domestic life. The moon controls maternal life. The red controls, military, will, aggression, force, that kind of life. The blue controls communications and skills with merchants. The orange controls other kinds of institutions and organizations. Green controls art and beauty. And when I say control, I don't mean like control. I just mean that that's the domain of physical reality that's under that kind of flag or under that kind of heaven. And of course, black is Saturn, which represents the judicial system, which represents ancient wisdom or hidden mysteries, that kind of stuff. So all this stuff is very well documented in this series of 7. And the whole 91 divided by 13 equals 7 again. And each of these, as you saw before, used to be corresponded with one of these animals, but the animals aren't what's important. As you can see here, I've also included the Chinese constellations, how they correspond with this zodiac. And all of these Chinese constellations, you have a total of 28 for 7 per 4. And each of these, of course, are different sizes, but we can keep track of that. We have the deacons here, because each was 30 degrees. The deacons are 10 degrees, hence the name deacon, and those correspond to other constellations. But here we have the Nakshatras, which is actually in both Arabic and Hindu astrology, we have that system where every single day of the moon means something. And although the sun also passes through this series of 28 once a year, it's actually the moon. And of course, this also corresponds to the moon. Let's not forget, the winter solstice corresponds to the new moon. And as the new moon rises, we come to the first quarter. which is symbolized right here. You have the new moon, then the first quarter, then the full moon once you get to the top here. And then, of course, the decline to the last quarter, and then again the new moon. And this, of course, as the moon follows this greater cycle, because the moon also goes around the zodiac once every 29 days or so, that corresponds to these nakshatras. Not only that, but it doesn't end there, guys. When Source gives you a download, it is complete and it is concise. Look at what is here. We have a series of not just one space for the moon, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other tracks. What do these 5 represent? Well, the first one, we can see there's some blue constellation signs in here, and that just references to when Mercury enters these tropical signs. So we have Mercury entering into Capricorn, Aquarius, and so on. And as Mercury enters here, all of a sudden we have a dark patch here, and this red spot references when Mercury actually stops in his track and starts to retrograde backward. This green represents the finishing of that retrograde, and another 3 days and Mercury is back speeding forward along the zodiac. But these 3 represent when he slows down. This whole point in between show that Mercury is moving backwards. The next passage is Venus, and the same thing for Venus, but now here we have superior conjunction, and this is when Venus is actually behind the sun. And then it continues on in the darker dashed line representing that. And then of course the third one is Mars, the fourth one is Jupiter, and the last one is Saturn. Now Saturn basically stays in a sign for like 2.5 years, so we don't need to worry about that right now. Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius, and that's basically the way it will stay for a couple years till beginning of 11th year. But after that, guys, it still doesn't stop there, because we have our eclipses. Let's see, as we progress through the year, we have a lunar eclipse right here, and then followed by a solar eclipse. And then following the path down here, we have another lunar eclipse and another solar eclipse. And these are styled a bit differently because there are different styles of the eclipses, but that's basically what that is, and it's all set forth in this system. There is no way that this system is man-made, because it completely follows the times of the luminaries around the clock in the skies. This is a clock in the skies that's divided into 12 hours. Each of these 12 hours equal the 12 months. And as these hands, the sun and the moon, go around like an hour and a minute hand, we can keep track of those times. Like it says in Genesis, he made them for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And so that is the calendar. That is what's just going on in the skies. It's not me putting out dates and, demarcating this and that. It's just what's going on in the skies, and that's the story of creation since the beginning. That's been the story. That's always been the story. Every single story is written here because it's following the blueprint of all that is. All that is has a blueprint, and there's only one blueprint, and that's the living word, the living logos. And if you read the ancient scriptures, like actually read them and not just read interpretations or sections like institutions spoon feed their congregations, because who do people look at for an example of what Christendom is? They look at the Vatican. You think the Vatican is actually analyzing these ancient texts and actually really talking about what they're really saying? Do you think that's really going on? Or do you think it's a hierarchy of priesthood that has a laity and has its clergy? Well, you know what? It's kind of obvious, especially when they call themselves Vicar of Christ, and then the confessionals and all that kind of stuff, man. You know what? We're not here to bash religion, but we are here to expose it and to show that, you know what? They're sitting on a gold mine. They're sitting on truth. And you're not going to figure out truth just by listening to what people have to say about it. You got to look at it for what it says for itself. And once you see that, you realize, hey, there's no churchgoers or churchianity or any of that stuff that's actually talking about this stuff. It's very few and it's very far between. And the ones that are, well, they're given a very hard time by mainstream sources. Speaking of mainstream, let's have a quick update on Pastor Art, because you know what? His court case happened and they're scared. They're scared of his message. They're scared of what he's been doing. So let me meet you back in Studio A with an update on that.
This is PTV, Phonetic Television. The following was originally presented in gobbledygook, but has been modified for your viewing pleasure.
These are the ongoing adventures of Enoch, the only ancient scientist who walked so close to the Creator that he converted directly to energy. Now his spirit lives on in the true essence of ultimate investigation. Enoch continues his amazing discoveries along with his faithful scribe, Yay!
Listen, Yay! Write down what I say. I got quite the resume. I calculated the days of the calendar in this way, with its leap days and feast days. But trouble seems to be on its way. Look what Uriel told me about the last days. And in the last days of the sinners the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy on their lands and fields. And all things on the earth shall alter, and shall not appear in their time. And the rain shall be kept back, and the heavens shall withhold it. And in those times the fruits of the earth shall be backward, and shall not grow in their time. And the fruits of the trees shall be withheld in their time. And the moon shall alter her order, and not appear at her time. And in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west, and shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order prescribed, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them. And they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods. And evil shall be multiplied upon them, and punishment shall come upon them, so as to destroy all. Then to me he had this to say, let thy heart be strong, for the good shall announce righteousness to the good. The righteous with the righteous shall rejoice, and shall offer congratulation to one another. But the sinners shall die with the sinners, and the apostate go down with the apostate. And those who practice righteousness shall die on account of the deeds of men, and be taken away on account of the doings of the godless. What an expose! Here's what I have to say. Blessed is the man who dies in righteousness and goodness, concerning whom there is no book of unrighteousness written, and against whom no day of judgment shall be found. And with that, Yay, come on, let's call it a day. Let's order some entrees down at Mahalalel's vegan alleyway. I already prepaid. Quick, let's hit the motorway. It's almost Saturday. And we are back in Studio A, guys. What can I say? I used to have the calendar up there, and it was really good up there because I could use it every time I needed to refer to it. But now I have it on my wallpaper. But I had to revise, especially those 4 creatures. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because that itself was in the original Oracle, the original download. So all of that does fit together. But we can't be distracted by, say, oh, what day is it in the Chinese constellation? Or what day is it in the Nakshatras? Or whatever it is. There's only that 12-phase pulse of the year. The tropical zodiac, and then the 12 constellations. When the sun is in the constellation, it's in that month. When it leaves that constellation, it's no longer that month. And that's the simplicity of Source's great clock in the sky. The calendar that's eternal and that transcends all of our Gregorian chart 7x52 grid. But yeah, back to Pastor Art and everything that's going on. A lot of people, we never even saw that this was coming to Canada, but he did, and he's been saying this for like 20 some years. He's been fighting and telling you, because he grew up behind the Iron Curtain. He was in communist Poland, and he saw just exactly how the Soviets manipulated the media, manipulated people, and just brainwashed and indoctrinated through education and all this kind of stuff. He's seen it and he's warning us since before. And he said, well, they came for me, now they're coming for you. And you know what? They started coming for us. So we started realizing, you know what? We better get on board. And the great thing was that, you know, he was fighting the premier from way back when. He was fighting Calgary mayors, Broncogne, and then Nenshi. He's had so much run-ins with these people that it's a vendetta now. And then when they barged into our church this Easter and they tried to interrupt the Passover service, he said, get out.
Out! Out of this property, you Nazis! Out! Out! Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out! Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without a warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without a warrant. Do not come back without a warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here.
You know, that video went viral, and it was because he stood up that people realized that this was going on in Canada. Canada, of all places. You know, I grew up wearing the poppy for Remembrance Day, and we were taught, like, all this stuff happened so we could be free. Well, is it free when you need to get registered to go to a restaurant, to go to a museum, to go to a hockey game, to go to the gym? Like, what is this? Obviously, we're not living in a free country. And there's no question about that. You just open your eyes. But sadly, a lot of people don't have their eyes wide open, and they only have this huge pipeline into their consciousness from the lamestream media or whatever. But this is the whole thing. Because he was so vocal and because he was going out and actually building awareness around this whole issue, guess what the judge said? The judge said, well, because you've done this and because you have all this following and because you're going out and actually people are listening to you, guess what? We're going to fine you the heftiest fine, and you can't say anything from the pulpit unless it's pre-approved. You got to read that disclaimer first and tell the other side of the story. But you know what? He was right back outside on the courthouse steps right after his trial, and he was just speaking.
They want to muzzle me. So here's my challenge to you. If I'm not able to speak, if my brother David is not able to speak, you speak. You yell as hard as you can. Because if I'm gone, you're next. If they will stop hunting me down, if they will stop hunting my family down, they will come after you. They will come after your children. They will come after your churches. They will come after your synagogues. We are the modern day Jews. It's a repetition of history. So this judge wants me to be quiet. He wants me to not preach the truth. Well, here is my answer to him. The Bible says, and I stand on my conviction and the word of God. The Bible says, not Germain, not the corrupted Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, not the corrupted Minister of Finance, Chandro, thieves and Nixons and all those minions of the devil. The Bible says the truth shall set the captives free, the truth. And I will never cease preaching the truth. Because if that's taken away from me, I have nothing left. And a life is not worth living.
God bless you, Pastor.
So I say the same thing what I said to the chief of police. You want to get rid of me? Shoot me between my eyes. Because until I am alive, I shall preach the truth, and the truth will set many captives free. So this is my answer to the judgment. I will not obey this judgment. And as my answer, I am breaking it already right now here on the steps of the court.
Because he's got that inner conviction that Source has given him when his son was a baby dying of cancer. And then all of a sudden he prays and he says, God, if you give me back my son, I'll serve you forever. And he thought that was it. Then he goes back to the hospital, and guess what? All the doctors are saying, hey, did you see the miracle baby? Did you see the miracle baby? He's like, what's this miracle baby? Found out it's his son. And his son is studying to be a lawyer now. That's the power of divine source. And when you allow that to direct your life, the doors open where no man could open them, and they close where no man thought they would close. So everything that the kingdom of darkness is planning against the kingdom of light, those doors are locked right now by the key of David. And no weapon formed against us will prosper, because this is our inheritance as servants of Yahweh. And we're not playing games, because honestly, because of this expose, we are rising up as lions, as eagles, in order to face these hyenas and eat them for breakfast. They're just little Chihuahua dogs. You know what Chihuahua dogs do? They bark really loud and they poop all over the place. But at the end of the day, we're the ones in control, and we're taking the reins back, not only for our city, our province, our nation, no matter how they rig the vote in their favor. We are taking it back on the causal plane, and we are showing that it's not by might and it's not by power, but it's by the spirit of Yahweh of hosts. The angelic armies are fighting on our behalf. And when we go into battle before our enemies, we sound those trumpets, and we are remembered before Yahweh.
Well, we're going to have our quartet of shofar blowers come up here. Come up here and let's pierce the heavens. Let's pierce the principalities and powers.
That's right. The Lord is all the earth.
We have a quintet. 5 shofars. Let's do it again.
Before that system of government that Source has implemented in the physical world of seed time and harvest, what you put out is what you get back. That's what the name Yahweh embodies. It literally means the one who continues in existence, who was, is, and forever shall be. That circle of existence that never begins and never ends. And that circle literally means that all things have to come back full cycle, and you reap the harvest of which you've sowed. So all of the corruption that has stood up in front of this edifice that's moving forward, this train is coming to its station, and we are on board, because we are the catalyst to actually bring this new world into fruition. It might take a bit of effort, it might take a little bit of push-pull and time lag. As the pressure increases on us, we are actually transformed into, and once those diamonds are ready, the light will shine on us, and we will really sparkle with that inner fire, the fire of the spirit of Elohim. So this is far from over. This is absolutely far from over. In fact, our crowning moment has only just begun. And what's even more interesting is the Latin word for crown. So yeah, we are really exposing the darkness and rising up as those warriors with that lion energy to really reclaim our sovereignty and step up as the kings and priests in this new era, because the corruption that has been cannot continue. It's literally like Source just pulled back the veil, and now everything that they were doing for generations upon generations in secret is no longer secret. It used to be hiding in plain sight, and now it's just in plain sight for those of us that see. And you know what? There's still those people that are stuck in the old paradigm, but we are seeing a splitting of the prism, And those of us that are awake, those of us that can see, eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to understand, and will to actually carry out what Source has called us to be in this time and space, we are the catalyst that will actually propel this whole thing forward, no matter whether they come or not. Eventually, they'll have to come, whether willingly or unwillingly. But we are leading the way into a new state of being, a new state of awareness where truth is king, love is king, and tapping in with that power that is the divine essence, that is the living logos. That inside of you manifests Earth 2.0. It's not our egos, because our egos have been indoctrinated. Our egos can't even perceive anything outside of what the brain has been programmed with. But Source within us, and that is the fire in our inner eye, and from there we visualize and manifest our best lives yet. The world that we knew we've come here to deserve. That, not manipulation, not control, not lies, not fear, none of that stuff. We are here to be sovereign and to reclaim our birthright as living entities and not dead corporations. So with that being said, man, I'm going to sign off here. This show turned out pretty good. I actually had other plans for this show where I was going to do an expose on this old video game that actually went through, the ancient scriptures and what they're actually saying, and kind of paralleling it with our present day, because, we're living under a dome of darkness, and that darkness is just manipulated anti-truth field, and it's controlled the people's mindset. It's almost like they're under a spell, or they're under this kind of radiation that affects their thinking. But that all aside, we'll cover that in the next episode. I gotta get going. I got some of my Daniel diet on the stove. Lately, I've been really intensively fasting and just eating very minimally flavored, spiced foods, because I'm tapping into this real energy. And of course, this is what Daniel did in the Hebrew scriptures. He refused the wine and the dainties of the king's table, and he said, let us eat just pulse and water. And at the end of 10 days, they were not only healthier, but they were so much wiser than the other men who actually ate all the fat foods and meats and wines and all that stuff from the king's table. So the king said, hey, all of you guys are going to eat this food, because that's what really taps you in. But on top of that, Daniel had a direct relationship with Source, because he said there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets. And all these minions and demons and lower dimensional entities that run around and tell you things and impersonate angels, watch out for that. It's very easy for a non-physical being to come to you and say, hey, I'm an angel of light. Listen to me, and help you along the way to convince you, but then further down the road lead you down a path that doesn't end quite so well. So be vigilant, be strong, and let Source guide you. Don't get your ego in the way. Don't say, oh, this feels better, so I'm going to do it, or inner gut feeling. Gut feeling is good to an extent, but when you're really directing your life, just surrender to Source. Source can see around the corner. Source can see what's coming way down the road, and Source can choose the people to line up in your life, those relationships that will unfold 5, 10, 20 years down the road in the way that you would prefer. Because you know what? People change, trends change, and sometimes people choose different things in life than when we first met them. But Source can see all of that, and when you really trust Source, man, you're in for an amazing ride. So I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. I really do. I send you blessings, and I decree prosperity, not just monetary prosperity, but in your soul, in your physical well-being, in your state of mind, so that you can manifest who you've come here to be, because we're all here for a reason. We're not experiencing this pressure just by accident. We are literally here to reclaim this world, to change this world, and to set up that world that is the utopia that we deserve, because we don't deserve anything less. We are warriors. We are here, and we are now. So step into the now. Be who you've come here to be. Spread your message. Spread your truth, whatever it is. And to however many people they are, it doesn't matter. Just that one person whose life has changed. That's why I don't care that YouTube has shadow banned me. That's why I don't care that YouTube is playing with the subscriber counts and the likes and all that stuff. I do not care, because the people that listen to this and those lives that are changed, that is my crown waiting for me when I shed this flesh. So I just pray that all of us can look past those physical limitations, that physical kind of validation from others and from social media platforms, and just know that even if one life has changed, man, even if just one life has changed, I do it all again. I do it all again 1,000 times over, because I know what it took for my life to change. And I know that if my life didn't change, I wouldn't be doing what I am today. And I know that we have that potential that is literally like when you throw a pebble in the water and those ripples spread out, you literally reach the whole pond. So that's what I decree over all of us. Every night when I go to bed, I make it a point, because I know we're all part of this high vibe tribe. I know we're all in this together, and we all have the bigger picture as our interest, not our egos. Our egos will benefit from those good choices that we make, because as the world flourishes, so do we flourish. But that bigger perspective is what we're all here to manifest. And it is an energetic exchange. So if you have benefited from my messages or anything, consider supporting me. You can send me an e-transfer to the email down in the description. Right now, I'm not asking for any money. If you feel in your heart that this has guided you or made you a better person or just woken you up somehow, then follow that conviction. But if it's not for me, just know that every time you reap something or a benefit or whatever it is, you are participating in an energetic exchange. And when you engage in that exchange, you actually engage in a fuller harvest that Source has waiting for you. So do it whatever you can. Like I said, I'm not asking for money. Whatever support, even if it's not support, just put it out there, your truth. Just speak it. Be who you've come here to be. And in engaging with the universe from within your heart space, you will manifest more of that harvest. So I love you guys. Again, peace, blessings, shalom, abundance, manifestations like you've never seen in the old world, but that just become normal in Earth 2.0. So I'll see you in another video. Joel signing out once again. Agape, salaam, namaste, khotep.
Bad boy, what you gonna teach, what you gonna preach, what you gonna do? Judge Jermaine be gunning for you. What you gonna teach, what you gonna preach? Pastor Rod is quoting Hebrews. Boy, what you gonna teach, what you gonna preach when they come for you? Bad boy, what you gonna do? Judge Jermaine be gunning for you. When you were young, full of shucks and strung, Alberta Commie Corpse covered in dung. Over the top, now the new rule. Stating for speech, a pause in two. Bad boy, what you gonna teach? What you gonna preach when they come for you? Bad boy, what you gonna do? Judge Jermaine be gunning for you. Chuck it on the COVID, chuck it on the test. They chuck it on the mask, and lying their best. They chuck it on the Delta, chuck it on the unback. Then we upchuck your twisted facts. Bad man, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we come for you? Bad judge, bad man, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we come for you? Bad judge, bad man, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we come for you? Bad judge, bad man, what you gonna do? Nuremberg trials coming for you. All I care is give you no break. Police, they give you no break. The sheep are not giving no break. Not even pastors give them no break. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when the gig is up? Bad boys, what you gonna do? Trials of Nuremberg waiting for you. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when the gig is up? Bad boys, what you gonna do? Trials of Nuremberg waiting for you. You will obey our orders. Why did you have to judge so mean? Don't you know you're a human being, appointed by God, the grace of the Father? The charter comes and the charter goes. You are so inclined to act like God. God is so inclined, past time for his mighty rod. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when he comes for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when it comes to boo? You're too bad, you're too cruel. You're too bad, you're too cruel. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when the truth breaks through? Bad boys, they put it on the test. They chuck it on mask as lying their best. They chuck it on the Delta, chuck it on the unbacks. Then we upchuck your twisted facts. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do when tribal hunts for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Glory to the Lord. He's the only one that can give you the courage to actually sing that.
Okay, let's get this show on the road. Alright now, welcome back, brother. Alright, welcome back. We're here in Studio B with our beautiful calendar. Sure, welcome to the Joel Fernandez Show.